700 forever, and everybody launched that thing. So I'm like, okay, what's the
So,
yeah.
looking for that came my Springfield on, you know, it's not the original Springfield. The original.
They have two plans, $500 deductible. For whenever we get to the point. And I don't have an extra $2,000 deductible, but we only have the renewal on it. So I have everything except for that. But I think there's only 3 employees utilizing that plan. So the bulk of
Are we on?
the conversation.
Yeah.
So you might have an extra one. I got a little bit of everything. Yeah, so you actually have an extra. So that's exactly. Okay.
Which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know,
Just what we need space in there.
Well, yeah, we got all the way down to 10. No, we got all the way to
Karen told him that. Did Karen tell you that when we get to acceptance of the agenda, she's going to make an item E correction, motion for correction. I'll show you. I'll bring it to you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, that one was actually, that's the one quit when I was up there. Oh.
I'll just let you do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Karen and I worked up the language on what
Okay.
needs to be for compliance.
That's on consent.
Yes.
Okay, well,
But it'll be right up there when we accept the agenda. We'll just get it over.
Everybody's fine?
Yes.
here, on the closing now. You get to reading this.
You just need to make a motion to accept the contract.
Okay.
And I think to give you permission to sign the paperwork.
Call the meeting to order. Karen, would you do a roll call, please?
Sheldon Delane, first ward.
Present.
Lucas Stansberry, second ward.
Present.
Bill Houston, third ward.
Present.
Jeff Leslie, fourth ward.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Sheldon, would you do the invitation, please?
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we just come to thanking you, Lord, for each day that you give us and the many presents that you provide. The air we breathe and the food we eat. We especially especially think of this time of year and the Fourth of July. We celebrate the birth of this nation and to thank you for all the lives that have been spent in the military, protecting us and giving us a freedom. And the ones that paid the ultimate price and for their families, Lord, we just thank you for each one. This time, we especially thank you for the opportunity to serve on this council and thank you for the city and the place to live. We think about all the people in the western part of the United States suffering so much with the heat. The 7 states are just setting records, Lord. We especially think of them during this time. Now be with us tonight, the things that we say and do, may we please you. In Jesus' name I pray.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a motion for acceptance of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Leslie, Fourth Ward, I move to amend the consent portion of tonight's agenda to add item E, correct published date of summary ordinance 1352, correct the date of publication to December 1, 2020. This is necessary for compliance for Karen, our city clerk.
Leave it for a second, 1 second.
Sheldon Delane.
Aye.
Luke Stansbury.
Aye.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Leslie, Fourth Ward, I move we accept the agenda tonight, following the amendment. The consent agenda and the entire agenda, right? Okay. Mr. Mayor, Jeff Leslie, Fourth Ward, I move we accept tonight's agenda, including the consent agenda.
Second.
Sheldon Delane.
Aye.
Luke Stansbury.
Aye.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we'll have a public meeting to close out our CDBG-CG.
The public hearing for this, for the purpose of evaluating the performance of grant number 20-CB-008, which was for the economic development, micro grants, and meal programs within the city limits of Girard. The completed project assisted 19 businesses and retained 96 jobs, of which 79% were LMI and 1 meals program. The grant was funded from the Kansas Department of Commerce, Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds. And then if you have any questions regarding the closeout, this is the time to bring them.
We need a motion for that.
Once we allow the public to speak, yes. we'll need a motion.
At this time, we close the public hearing.
Therefore, we just need a motion to accept closing out the CDBG-CG grant
And allow the mayor to sign.
and allowing me to sign the paperwork.
Mr. Chairman, I'm good that we close out the meeting, CDBG
Jeff Lester, fourth ward, second.
Okay, John Delane,
Aye.
Luke Stansberry,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. This time we move on to, public forum. At this time, we have, Lori Miller from Heartland Retirement Benefits and Consultants LLC.
Thank you all. I actually own a consulting firm in Hutchinson, Kansas. I've been doing retirement planning for 19 years. That's really my 20th year doing retirement planning. I am a financial advisor. But for the last 10 years, I've had a lot of my clients asking us for help with our health insurance. Health insurance, as you all are probably well aware, has become a really big cost to a lot of companies, cities, municipalities such as yours in providing really good benefits, maintaining the really rich benefits like your $500 deductible that you offer to employees, while also saving money. What we do, my background again is in retirement planning. So I am a financial advisor, so what I do for a lot of my customers is, trying to help them with their insurance costs, so they can put more money away for retirement. So, I, like you, probably, don't like your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance and all that. It seems like every year it goes up and, the benefits typically go down. So what we did I actually partner with a company called Freedom Claims Management in Great Bend, Kansas. We offer a very proprietary, innovative plan design. Freedom Claims Management, actually, the owner of that, which is Julie Armour, she was co-owner of BMI, Benefit Management Incorporated in Great Bend, for a number of years, and back in 2004, she started her own company. So she's been doing health insurance for nearly 40 years. She started the state high-risk pool for the state of Kansas, and so that's the company that I utilize for my group health clients, because she has the expertise in doing health insurance. And so what we've illustrated for the city of Girard, what we typically do, and we can do the cookie cutter plans like what you have now. We can mirror those and just look at, currently you have Blue Cross Blue Shield. We can quote those with all the different admitted carriers in the state of Kansas. So most of the larger players are Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Aetna. We do find in the rural areas that Blue Cross Blue Shield typically works best. We used to not be able to utilize Blue Cross Blue Shield with our proprietary plan, but I, myself, and Julie Armour, Freedom Claims, we have a booth at the City Clerks Conference, the County Clerks Conference, and the County Commissioners Conference. And so we have moved enough cities and counties away from Blue Cross Blue Shield that we finally, they finally would work with us. And on the left side of your packet, for those of you that have it, those are references for other cities and counties that utilize the Freedom Choice Plan that we're going to discuss. So if you want to visit with any of these companies or these cities and municipalities, that how it works for them and how it's been able to save them money, then those are some references. Behind that on the left side those are actual personal references of my firm. And not all of these are health insurance. Fuller Industries, I don't know how many of you guys familiar with the Fuller Brush Salesman. They're located in Great Bend, Kansas, and I actually do their 401k. I have for nearly 10 years now. Casino White Cloud, I've had their 401k for about 10 years. City of Ellis is another city. They've had our health insurance plan for about 6, 7, 8 years now. And I don't know, Karen, if you know Amy Burton, the city, because she was I know for the city, I know that when you guys would have your conferences, she was kind of taking care of a lot of that. So in your packet on the right side, if you'll look at the proposal that we've illustrated, what we basically do, you currently have 2 plans that the city offers to employees. You have a $500 deductible plan, which is that first spreadsheet. And with the $500 deductible, then it's 80/20 co-insurance. So for every $5 in bills, the employee only pays $1, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield would pay the other 80%. So the co-insurance is only another $1,000 after that $500 deductible. So the maximum out of pocket currently for the employees is only $1,500, which is a very rich, very wonderful plan, which is probably why you have a lot of really good employees that stick around because the benefits are so good. So that right there is the renewal. So the city's looking at, and we've got 27 employees that are utilizing that plan right now of the 30. 27, so for the most part, everybody is pretty much using this $500 deductible plan. The column on the left, that's the renewal. So I don't know what the bill is currently, Karen, what the monthly, but this is just for the health insurance, not dental or anything else. It's going to be monthly $32,000 a month for those 27 employees. What we do with the Freedom Choice Plan is we come out and we actually gather a high deductible health plan quote. And if you look at them, we actually gathered all Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then the last column is United Healthcare. But I would take United Healthcare and just mark it out because it's only if you look at the bottom, it's only 14%, almost 15% in savings. So it's $27,000 a month versus the 32 on the renewal. What we typically do is we come in and we buy a high deductible health plan, and then we pair your plan, we mirror the exact benefits that you have, especially if you like them, or we will enhance them. Some companies, some groups that we work with don't have a $500 deductible that they like. They might be going from, the last couple of groups I've taken over, one had a $2,600 deductible. So their deductible was $2,600, their out of pocket was over $7,000. And after 3 years of being on our plan, they went down to a $1,000 deductible and a $3,000 out of pocket. So their out of pocket for the year was where their deductible was 3 years before that. Now they were a group of 85. They also had over $400,000 in their savings account after switching over. So what we do is we find a high deductible health plan, and looking at these, the best one that we see, I would mark out column number 2 with Blue Cross and column number 3, and focus on the fourth column, that $7,000 deductible plan. If you'll look, the monthly premium on that high deductible is $20,000. And if you compare that to the $32,000, there's $12,000 a month that we could build a plan for the city of Girard, mirror the same $500 deductible. And then what we do is we take that money, we put that into a savings account. A lot of the groups that I work with actually use their local bank because they want to keep those dollars local. It's in an interest-bearing account. It would actually be the city's money, and we would build a plan. That actually would provide 37.53% in savings. So if you keep that 37% in mind, and then pull this illustration out that looks like this. It's the one with the $500 deductible plan. If you look at that illustration, you'll see in the black, that's that $7,000 high deductible plan, that's $20,000 a month. What we would do for the city is basically take all the employees that are on that $500 deductible, and basically the blue portion is the employee's plan. That's the same plan that they have now, although I would actually recommend making it better. You do still have a $25 primary care office visit and a $50 specialist. That's still really advantageous and really generous. Most average industry standard right now is $35 for a primary care office visit and $70 for the specialist. So I would keep all of these benefits the same. The only thing that I would recommend possibly to make it even better is make that generic copay instead of $20. I would make that $5 or $10 to steer more people into utilizing generics, because a preferred generic drug, if you go to Walmart, is $4. A non-preferred generic is maybe $11 or $12. Well, by having a $20 copay, the employees are paying $20, and the retail cost of that is probably less. So your generic utilization for the group would actually go up significantly if you change that to, and if they're getting charged less than the $20, it's because the pharmacy is really being proactive and helpful in only charging them the retail cost if it's less than that $20 copay. So this peach portion up there is actually the cost to the city. So for every, let's say a single person on the plan, there's $1,500 that they have in out of pocket. That leaves $5,500 that the city would actually self-fund. And this plan, this Freedom Choice Plan, is basically like a happy medium between the old self-funding where people actually did this, but they bought like a $50,000 stop loss policy. The employees still had their $1,500 out of pocket, but that's, 48,500 that's, risk to the city. So there was a lot of risk in self-funding. This is, and then there's no risk in doing the cookie cutter plan like what you have now. You're just paying all that money to Blue Cross. If you have a lot of young employees or healthy employees, I'm 50 and I can tell you the only time I go to the doctor is when I do my checkups or if I'm bleeding or something's possibly broken. I'm not gonna go to the doctor. So for me, traditional insurance is a big waste of money. So this is how we would illustrate, basically that plan is, customizable. You can illustrate that. Basically what we did was just mirror what you have. If you flip to page 2, this kind of goes into the details of what we do with, with the money. Basically, you have the high deductible health. The top one is actually your renewal. So we're going to compare everything we compare to is what your renewal is for August 1st with Blue Cross. You have 10 singles, and I know that since you have less than 100 employees, all the employees are actually individually rated. So if you have a 50-year-old, it's going to be higher than a 25-year-old. These rates what we did was made a composite rate, like the old days, where they just had a single rate for single spouse. So based on your current enrollment for those 27, it would be basically $700 a month for your $500 deductible. Then you look down at tier 2, part 1. That's the umbrella policy. That's that $7,000 deductible plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then the next part of that, is the Freedom Claims part. That's where we build that plan underneath that. Freedom Claims charges a $52 per employee per month administration, and that's for them to do the administration on that secondary plan. So for the 10 singles, that's $520. Single and spouse, $260. So there's $1,404 a month that would be for the administration. And what the city would get with that, there's COBRA administration. I actually do all my own enrollments. So if Karen has new hires and things like that, I don't know if she currently does that or who does that, but I actually go, if they have new hires, I come and explain all the benefits, go through, have them fill out all the paperwork and take care of setting them up versus having the city clerk do that or whoever is assigned to that. The other thing that we receive for the administration cost is we have a dedicated claims examiner. So the city of Girard would actually have a person that was assigned to the city. So if there's questions on bills, claims, pharmaceutical visits and things like that, we actually have a person that we can call to look into that for us while the employees are working. They don't have to worry about being the ones to call Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, and they also do the COBRA administration. So if anybody terminates, they send all the COBRA paperwork and take care of all the compliance, create the plan document and all the regulatory items. The next part of that, we would be looking at putting $394.65 per person, per employee, into that claims fund. So this would go into your savings account. So if you look at the top, which is your renewal, compared to all the pieces down there, the umbrella policy, the administration, and that $10,655 would actually go into your savings account. If you add that up, it's the same $32,000 that you would be looking at spending, although $10,655 would be going into your savings account. They do charge a $1,000 setup fee. That's to create the plan document, all the enrollment packets, the cards for all the employees. But we wouldn't actually be saving you money on a monthly basis, but the $10,655 going in every month. If you flip over to page 3, that adds up to the $127,868 where it says the claims estimate. That's for the dollars that would go into your savings account. But before we go to that, I want you to look at currently, if you look at the top, this is showing industry standard actually getting closer to like 16% as far as renewal. So this shows you what year 1, if you guys renew the $32,000 a month, that's what you'd be spending in 1 year annually. Then a 12% rate increase year 2 would be about $431,000 for the year 3, 4, and after 5 years for budgeting purposes, the city could be looking at over $600,000 a year just in health insurance premiums. Down at the bottom, if you look at the savings, that $10,655 going into your savings account, this is actually how we get paid. It's 20% in savings. So for every $5 that we save the city, Freedom Claims and I split $1. So I get 50 cents and they get 50 cents. If we don't save you money, then we don't get paid. And I have an example of how that's happened. In fact, during COVID last year, I had several groups. I've got 2 nursing homes that I had 2 or 3 months for the year that were actually negative for a month. It was 3 months for the whole, now that for the whole year, it was still positive in savings. But that month, they didn't have a savings compared to what they would have done, because of all the claims and all the people in the, the hospital, and I actually didn't get paid. I don't like it when that happens, but, somebody might call that a conflict of interest, but I call it a vested interest in making sure that the plan works for the city. And because if you don't save money, then I don't get paid. So if you subtract the percentage of savings on that, that's the 20%. So if you subtract that, the net is $102,294. So if you take that $102,000 that would be in your savings account and divide it by that liability per member, that $5,500 piece portion, 18.6 people would have to hit that $7,000 umbrella policy, and basically have catastrophic bills for us to break even and just renew the Blue Cross. So 18, almost 19 people, and in any group in a 5-year period, you usually have 3 average years of claims that are just normal for the 63 members you have. You'll have a really good year with low claims, and you'll have a really bad year with high claims. And it seems like right now they penalize you all 5 years for that one bad year that you end up having. So if you go to page 4, this shows you statistically groups with 63 members. 63 members, which is how many are on that $500 deductible. You should have claims over 7,000. You should have 4.50 people hit that $7,000. So statistically, with that many people, 4.5 people should hit it. Even if you have a really bad year, 8 or 9 or 10 hit it, you'd have to have 18.60 for us not to save you money. So there's the statistically how likely is that to happen, barring a bomb hitting the facility and everybody being here at the same time. Probably not going to happen. If you flip to the next page, 5, this goes into the explanation of each tier, tier 1, tier 2, part 2 and 3, and each one of those on page 2 to kind of give you an explanation of each part. But basically, you end up getting 2 bills. You have the higher deductible Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then you have the Freedom Claims bill. The Freedom Claims bill could or doesn't have to include that savings account, because some companies want us to collect that and then put it in their bank account, and some of them just put it in their bank account. But sometimes we've had a couple that forgot to put it in their bank account, and then when we went to pay claims, there wasn't any money in there. So if you look at page 6, this goes into maximum liability. So if we have that 5,500, that liability times those 10 single employees on that $500 deductible, that's 55,000. And then, so now let's say that there's employee and spouse or employee and children. You're only charged 2 of those. You have a $500 deductible. You're only charged 2 of those. And so you'd only have 2 of those 5,500s for the 5 employee and single. So that's the other 55,000 for the 5 that are employee and spouse, 5 employee and children, another 55,000. And then the family, there's actually 7 families, so they'd still have 2 of those 5,500, and that's the 77,000. So $242,000 is maximum liability for the city if every employee hit that high deductible plan, and they had to pay the $5,500 per employee, or 2 per family, or 2 per employee and spouse. You'd be setting aside $127,867.68 if you subtract that percentage of savings, which is the net of that. You'd actually be setting aside 42% the first year in maximum liability. So after 2 or 3 years, you actually end up having enough money in there. We've had some groups stop funding for a year, or they may be not put as much. I've had some of them that we're funding 150 or 200% of what maximum liability, and that's for budgeting purpose, you could actually lower that down. But this gives you the ability to actually take the money that you're spending on health insurance now and pay for just your employees versus all of them, all of the what ifs. I actually have there's only 3 people that are on the $2,000 deductible. There's not as much savings, but when you have a group that small, there usually isn't. There's 3 employees on it and 7 total members. And you can still do it. What we would recommend is you buy the one $7,000 high deductible plan, and then you still offer the two options underneath. The one that's the $500 deductible and the $2,000 deductible, you can still offer both of those. So I have an illustration we can go through, but it's the exact same thing, just for that $2,000 deductible. But I want you to pull out on the right side of your, nope, it's on the left. Under the references, on the left side, there are two savings reports. The first one is what Karen would actually receive this monthly. This is the savings report, and it actually tracks from each month for the whole year, for the whole 12 months, where you're tracking on. It shows you what your prior carrier rates, that would be if you did the renewal. This group actually has 70-some employees, and if you'll notice, the 70-some employees, the net savings for the year, the bottom right-hand quarter, that's $151,995. This plan saves $1,000 to $3,000 per employee per year. So if it's a really good year, it might be, you have, 30 employees, it might be $90,000. If it's the 3,000, you have the really low claims. If it's a really bad year and you have a lot of claims, we might only save you $30,000. Most of my groups run in the middle, on average 2,000. So with 30 employees, you could look at about $60,000 in savings for the year and have the same benefits that you have now. Even if you had a bad year, I had a group, and actually we'll go over that next. So this one shows the prior carrier rates. That's the prior plan. So that's the $76,000 a month. Then you'll see the umbrella policy. That's for the high deductible. The administration cost, that's for freedom claims, administration for the month. Then you would actually know on a monthly basis how much you had in actual medical claims for just your employees and how much prescription claims. A lot of times you don't see anything on the first month because it has to run through Blue Cross Blue Shield first to receive all the network discounts and make sure everything's approved through Blue Cross. And then it runs through the secondary plan, which is the employee's $500 deductible or $2,000. So a lot of times you don't see that anything the first month out of the savings because, and the other thing is employees a lot of times are meeting their deductibles when they first start. So they haven't met their deductible yet, so they have to pay a lot more out of pocket when you renew. And the other thing is a lot of times people don't bill very quickly. I hear it all the time. It's 4 or 5 months later after I went to the doctor that I finally got a bill. So if you subtract all of those pieces from the prior carrier rates, that gives you a gross savings on the first month. Like on this one was June, was $16,125. That $48.37, the risk management fee is the 20%. So you subtract that, that leaves a net savings for that 1 month of $11,287.50. So you would know on a monthly basis what you actually have, what we actually paid out of your savings account in medical, prescription actually. Just like on this one, it was actually more than the medical, and it's usually in the top 3 if it's not the top. So medical prescriptions are usually a large cost. But you'll see that this group of 70-some saved $151,000. This is actually a county in the state of Kansas. I had a group, the next one, if you look at the second one behind there, this is actually an example of a negative savings. I want you to see what it looks like if you don't have positive savings for a month. If you look at July, we had the prior carrier rates were $15,612. The high deductible was $7,700. You have the administrative cost, which is fixed. Then monthly medical, we had a hysterectomy that month, and one of the employees had a daughter that was 15 or 16, and she had a baby. We had to pay for it. Now the baby was then covered by CanCare, but we had to pay for the daughter for medical bills. And then the prescriptions were really high. Well, when you subtract all of that, there was a gross negative of $2,553.58 negative savings. And then I actually got the split $766.07 of negative. So I actually didn't get paid that month, and it kind of carried over to the next month. So there was a negative in July. There was another one of those in October. For the year, they ended at $30,127.61 in savings. Since they had around 20 employees, we goaled them at 40,000, and they only, we could argue this was their first year on it. We could argue they had, a bad year, but this was a small business owner with about, I say small, he's got about 50 employees, and there's about 10 stores around the state of Kansas.
And he was tickled pink to only save $30,000, but to have the same benefits that he had before. So he wasn't upset, he didn't save another 10,000. So that shows you how the negative savings works. Does anybody have questions on how the plan works as far as, you wanna know what the negative parts are? You wanna hear the cons? 2 cards. You end up having 2 cards, a primary insurance, which would be Blue Cross Blue Shield, and the secondary, which would be the city of Girard. It would have Girard's logo on it. It would say the city of Girard, have the employees' names on it. It works just like Medicare and a Medicare supplement. In fact, I sold this little thing for my Medicare clients. The primary is the Blue Cross Blue Shield. The secondary would be the city of Girard. So the employees would have to show 2 cards. The nice thing about that is that because this is a fully insured ACA compliant plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield, even though it's a $7,000 deductible, Blue Cross has to pay for all of the health and wellness at 100%. So nothing would come out of the savings account for all that. So even though you haven't met a $7,000 deductible, Blue Cross pays for all the mammograms, the PAP, the colonoscopies, all the wellness at 100%. They also provide all the network discounts. So it has to run through Blue Cross, just like when you're on Medicare, it has to run through and be a Medicare approved procedure if you're having your varicose veins done, and that's considered cosmetic. And Medicare doesn't pay just like this. You know, if the health insurance and Blue Cross is not going to pay it, then the secondary doesn't pick up. Now I say that, but underneath that $7,000 deductible, that's the city of Girard's money. So I have had groups like City of Ellis. The first year we were on United Healthcare, and there was one dermatologist in Hayes that he was not in network for United Healthcare. So what we did was we treated it, the city wanted to treat that provider as in network and pay it just like they would any other provider as a specialist. They went ahead and covered it because it was unlikely that it would ever hit $7,000 with that one provider. And so United Healthcare didn't. I mean, they can try to dictate, but it's the city's money underneath that. So you can grandfather and do some things with providers. I've actually done a provider lookup for all the doctors and specialists when a group was looking at possibly changing different insurance companies, but I do recommend staying with Blue Cross Blue Shield the first year because of all the prescriptions.
And if you funded a out-of-network, out of your reserve money, that would not apply though towards
The
the
high
7,000
right.
with.
Yeah, right, yeah. But, you know, again, it kind of depends on what you're having done, but it does give the city flexibility to treat things. I've had other groups look at possibly, let's say you're having a colonoscopy done or a mammogram and they find a lump. Most insurance companies for 5 years will treat that as having a diagnostic of something other than wellness, and it's subject to the deductible and co-insurance, so it's not paid at 100%. Those are some of the things that if the city wants to do, they can actually cover those as they were covered and pay for them underneath that high deductible. But whatever they do, they just have to do it for everybody, as long as it's consistent. But it does give the city flexibility to utilize their money and still provide those good benefits. But, you know, look at some savings. I mean, I don't know what the demographics is of your group as far as health-wise, but the other thing is everything's guaranteed issue, it all covers pre-existing conditions, and so none of that stuff is excluded. Any other questions?
Is there any other negatives before? I have one quick question.
I think most of the time it's usually they run it through the primary, they don't run it through the secondary, and somebody will get a bill and they'll say, well, it says I didn't meet my $7,000 deductible, and I get the bill. If it doesn't have, you get 2 explanation of benefits. You get one from Blue Cross and one from Freedom Claims. If it doesn't have 2 line items, whether it was subject to the deductible or you've got an adjustment for the network, if two line items for Blue Cross and one for Freedom Claims isn't on each bill, then it hasn't ran through both. So that's usually the question. What I did for like City of El Dorado, I went to all 4 of their pharmacies, introduced myself, provided my contact information, and made sure that, in fact, one of the pharmacies' software wasn't up to date. The mom and pop pharmacy was, and they couldn't accommodate a secondary card. The secondary card has the same RX number, VIN number, and all that, but the Walgreens in El Dorado had really outdated software. You wouldn't think that a Walgreens, with all the commercials that they run, and the manager of that store was very happy that the city had switched because it gave him some leverage in going back to corporate and getting that software updated because they were, it was causing problems with other, other groups.
So you basically put the vendors on alert that if it's a city employee, run it through both of you.
Yep, I go in, especially for small communities, a lot of the ones like, Hill City, Ellis, I went to the farm, a lot of times they only have one or two pharmacies. And so I make sure that they know who I was actually in the military for 8 years, so I have a little different work ethic than, the only problems that I typically have are the ones we don't know about. Because anytime you use insurance, you're gonna have questions, problems, and issues, and I've had problems with every insurance company I've ever worked with, Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Aetna, they don't wanna pay your bills, or it seems like it. They make things cumbersome paperwork, it's usually more questions that they have from either the provider, the participant, that the insurance company, and a lot of times they should pay. And I've actually went into groups and told somebody their out of pocket is $3,000, and they say, well, I spent almost $5,000 this year. And come to find out, this one gentleman, he had a surgery, and there was a part that the insurance company, they were supposed to write it off. Well, they didn't. They billed the guy, and he paid. And so when I'm telling him his out of pocket is $3,000, he told me he spent almost $5,000. We called the provider, and one of my claims examiner that I have is a nurse, so she knows all the lingo. Well, it was the provider was actually an Atchison, and they actually were supposed to write it off because they didn't do all the prior authorization paperwork and everything that the provider was supposed to do before the guy had this eye surgery. Well, the EOB that we received from Blue Cross said should have been written off. Well, they billed and he paid it. Well, when Lindsay called the provider, they said, well, that was subject to deductible. And she said, well, you send me the EOB that says that, because the one that I received from them said it should have been written off. Well, she kept pressing them and kept calling, and they normally if you would have told that to just an everyday person that doesn't understand what a deductible is or can't look in the system and see that he's met that, so they end up getting $1,800 back from that provider. So.
One more quick question. On page 6 of your proposed medical plan design, kind of a maximum risk, so to speak, worst case scenario, if every employee, every relative, up to 2 per plan, get the $7,000, the maximum liability of $242, we would reserve funds of $127, so that's roughly about $114,000 in there would be the maximum risk factor.
Well, 242 is the maximum.
But we already have us reserving 127, or is that?
Yeah. Well, the 127, yes, but you subtract that percentage of saving, it basically, basically be 102.
Okay, so that was my question. Is our maximum worst case scenario, which we all hope and pray and understand to be highly unlikely,
242,000.
would be 242?
Yep.
And would that include all risk management fees and everything, as far as you know, or is that just the
Oh yeah, that includes everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so for budgeting purposes, you would have, the nice thing is, and when we have increases, when we come up, the other thing is we can get renewals as early as 90 days, sometimes sooner, depending on, how quickly we can get it from Blue Cross. What I hear from a lot of groups is we don't get it early enough to do anything about it. It's too late to usually do something. But when you receive those, let's say you do get a 12% rate increase, but it would only be on that $20,000, not the whole 32. So that's in the last year or two, a lot of the groups that I work with, a lot of the cities haven't changed what they're making the employees. They haven't changed their all-in cost and what the employees have to pay, because even when there's a rate increase, if the city has money sitting in their savings account, they sometimes will absorb that, and the city will take on a little bit of increase, and the employees don't have to pay more, which is kind of nice to be able to tell, employees that they're not having to pay more. And then some of them, like Ellis, I wouldn't have been able to take that group over had the employees been open to paying something, because see, they weren't paying anything. When the city's paying 100% of families and things like that, but it was getting so expensive that they can't afford to continue to do that, then that's when you have to start going to the employees and saying, you're gonna have to start paying 100 or 200 or whatever it is, whatever the city is thinking that they need help paying. And what was the other thing I was gonna say? And so you'll get the renewal early. You would actually be able to utilize and figure out how you want to. And some will decide to keep the all-in cost the same. Some will decide to keep the reserves the same to keep building that. you have the flexibility of looking at it, or you're just kind of tweaking. And the other thing is, you're gonna get some reporting that you've never received before because of the size of your group. So on a quarterly basis, we have a quarterly review that I will send Karen. You can have, you know, a visit about your in the meetings, but it'll show you where all your money's going, providers by provider and by medical service, so you'll know where the dollars are being spent. The other thing that you're gonna get is there's a whole bunch of reports that we can provide you. I've had groups that have double the number of ER visits that a group of that size should have, and that tells us they're not going to the primary doctor. So at renewal time, I gave them a list of their convenience care clinics, like urgent care and things like that, so people aren't going to the ER. And the other thing we did is they had a really old plan with $150 copay on the ER, and it wasn't much of a deterrent. Industry standard is like 300, like you guys have. So you have the option of tweaking the plan a little bit to kind of steer people into utilizing, you know, that right.
Last question, I promise. Have you had any of your clients join your
And
freedom
quit?
choice and just get hammered the first year or two? Because I could see where if you were in a few years, you built some savings, if you take a really just horrendous year as a hit.
I've had them have some negative months, and mostly like the new ones I had last year during COVID. I had a couple of them where I had, just like that one group, had two or 3 months, but overall not for the whole year. They still had savings. The other thing I will say, during COVID, I had a group of 85 that completely shut down for 2 months. They closed their doors. They had so much money sitting in their savings account. Of course, they've been on this plan for 3 years, 2.5 years into it. They paid their Blue Cross bill and they paid their Freedom Claims bill with the money out of the reserve account. And the employees still had health insurance for the 2 months they were off. Otherwise, they would have canceled their health insurance. So,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you.
Moving on to regular business. Item A, executive session for real estate to discuss offer made to local business and sub property in the city.
Mr. Mayor, we'll be going to executive session for real estate to discuss the offer made by local business sub property of the city. Recommended no longer than 15-minute session to include the mayor, the council, the city attorney, the city administrator, the public works director, and the record director.
John Delane. Aye. Lucas Stansberry.
Yes.
Bill Houston. Aye. Jeff Lester.
Aye.
I know. Thank you so much. Paper working out for you? Not very big, man, is it?
No.
And what they say.
What are you doing? What you up to?
Calm down.
Preferential.
Girard County. I even put that.
Yeah, but I kept mine.
His
Words
name is
myself.
not on the deed.
Honey,
His house. is on
I'm
the deed.
old, longer than you are old.
Still not good for you.
I'm almost 70.
He was a doctor. Maybe that's why.
I had doctors tell me, you need to put that. Every one of them has been younger.
We're consistent.
I started when I was 12 years old. I'm knocking on 70. Has killed me yet.
It's the,
Yeah, I've lived a good life.
you're happy, huh?
We're still very young.
I'm telling you, she keeps me young. Absolutely, absolutely. Lucky man. She tells me that every day. She tells me I'm a lucky man every day.
My mother-in-law was 99 or
Oh, wow.
99.
She worked here in town. Lives on her own.
Yep,
Good for her.
indeed.
Nicole just left, so she was 8 years military. You didn't happen to see her.
All right, thanks.
He's offering that gift though. That's a hard thing to give up.
Very hard to give up something that you know works to an unknown. They do have a lot of references that you have them, and they do, she wasn't lying when she said they go to the clerk's conference. They do, and I've gone for several years now, and they've always been there.
She seemed very thorough. I mean, she clearly
She
knows what
did.
she's talking about, but I mean, that's a lot of numbers.
I just wish there was a shorter version, find out, you know, inside out. That was the.
A cliff note
Well-
section.
Mindy is president of Pinnacle Care, and their company, their organization literally negotiates the contracts with every healthcare provider that they're talking about. If you really want to know the interpretation of everything she said,
Mhm.
this is the president of Pinnacle Care right here. She can tell you exactly what the story
Did you
is.
like this like, or did you have?
I mean, they're just third-party administrators and, they're the middleman and it's just like anything else. It's a gamble. But like COVID, you have a few employees in the hospital, in the ICU, that COVID and they got money from.
That's what I understand. I know that we
In
have
concept like
a
a savings
couple
account,
issues
right?
already.
Like a health insurance savings account, you put money in there, and then anything that goes over what you normally have your people pay, it comes out of the city's extra money.
Okay, this is how it works.
I know their injections are very,
They
very.
take a blue cross blue shield at a very high cash rate. They take the money and they gamble on low.
You're not gonna hit 17.8% of people.
Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose.
Biologicals for arthritis.
You know,
That makes sense. I mean, it is. I mean,
but the bottom line is
Because
that's why you have two cards.
this is from the children.
The blue cross blue shield is.
Probably not.
Yeah.
They try to get, saying that
Yeah.
a premium.
$20
that
a
they get a
month,
better deal.
that's not bad at all.
The city deals directly with
So.
the they're the middleman. Like I say, they're the book. They're buying it at a catastrophic rate and they're
Selling
selling
it
it.
at a different place.
And they're banking the difference, saying, hey, they're banking on you, but you're not making this.
I agree.
You're 3 or 4 catastrophic things away
It's
from
not illegal.
blowing it out of the water.
Yes.
So,
And it makes sense. If you've been into it for 10 years, you may have that.
right.
But it's a matter of you didn't even get the 10 years
A large
before
percentage.
It really-
something happened.
If you got a lot of young guys, 20-year-olds, might be,
I mean, look at Johnny, he's gonna break himself one of these days.
Johnny, this
Oh,
guy,
gosh.
what are you, 28? under 65.
There you go.
You save 32 grand a month. It's all Medicare.
Always.
There's your ticket.
Every employee has to be
Yeah,
senior
that's
citizen.
It has to be Medicare eligible.
Yeah.
You see that little old lady out there on the side of the road?
Yeah, they go, because they're not big
Oh,
enough.
that's horrible.
That's
I
not
don't
what
need
you
that. That's interesting though. I mean, it makes,
But
it's
she
a
literally,
sale.
And
her company
every year.
literally, and she does the credentialing of all the doctors.
They just list insurance.
Every time,
It's,
yeah.
Yeah, she was, when she was saying, she was, explaining everything.
Oh, yeah, the kids, I mean, the gardening.
Yeah.
If you don't know the gardening, you know.
It's mostly.
Oh, yeah, everything makes
expenses for
Right.
Hospitalizations
But basically,
and medications, $9 medications.
they're the
And
bookies.
these generics,
They're taking money from both sides and
When you're
hopefully
dealing with chemotherapy and
come
those
out.
other meds, there's not
their bookies
generics.
gets guaranteed to be paid.
So that's where the cost is.
I can believe that. My husband, they changed started for me, had, you couldn't get chemo. Unless it was in the local.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't go to your local pharmacy. I said, that's not right. You're taking money away.
That's
from
right,
the
you
pharmacy."
know, really.
And the convenience and they know you and paying after hours. That
What's up, man?
antibiotic.
And, yeah, I know, but, oh, no, you don't. You don't. That, if I'm happy, so I get mine, and I don't know, I get mine. I don't have time for something. I haven't done almost everything. Because you have to have this,
Yeah.
when I call on the retail, they say,
And, you know,
"Hey,
they do have systems to refill at the same time
Where?
every month. There are programs like that.
Really?
It's-
That's awesome.
Is that the same one that they found in Pittsburgh like last week?
Yeah, no problem.
Things like-
Yeah, so that need to go. Where'd they find it?
But if you choose
Oh,
yours.
on East Bay.
yeah,
That's crazy.
that's kind of a-
That's the first one for me.
I bet.
Healthcare is very complex. Very
Is it
complex.
alive?
Anyway, we-
They're in a nice big box.
How big?
so much change.
Good size? Or-
It's-
I just don't know what to do.
Looks like it's been happy.
So,
That's awesome.
Well, remember that last week they had in Pittsburgh, like, guy had a little-
Research. It's been a long time since
You know,
I've read
last
all
week
of
I was
this,
front
but
page, holding everything up.
trying to
Did you see
check
that?
into
On Pittsburgh Sun? Yeah. You guys holding it up. You could have been on the front
It's
page.
scary.
They're doing every
If
week.
you go get it, I'll get a cameraman. Go.
What's the deadline?
You wanna go see?
What's the deadline? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow noon, we
Tomorrow
get it.
noon.
Tomorrow noon's the deadline. We can put
Bring it
something.
in, I'll get you in there.
Hometown Tour.
Yeah. Usually the top
I know
range or
something
something
about
like
it, but I want to.
Oh, like that?
And I said, "Think it was just that."
No, they're expensive.
Yeah, they are.
They've done it. They've helped.
Yeah, they are.
Big conditions of ethics of
So did anybody claim it?
Yeah. So
I'm sure
I figured that might be.
everybody in the world heard me on the radio.
You can't think of it. It's not like they chip them.
People lining up tomorrow.
I guess, like I said, I wasn't since COVID last year, have I thought about really anything? I was trying to do a little research.
No, he didn't want nothing to do with
It's
it.
something that, they have real trouble during COVID.
I bet that's-
I was grateful that things calm, it's been handled.
And that was really- Oh,
I'm fun something, it's been a long haul.
Yeah, yeah. Good for you.
And not having to rest the next day.
Yeah, yeah, good for you. Good for you. It
It's
takes,
really fun.
I mean, that's one way to get after that feral cat population, I guess.
once a year.
They should have let it loose.
Still left to go.
Should have let it loose, drop it off.
Yeah. We can clear that right
I
out.
had no idea that.
Well, it's like it's changed 'cause he can chip
Right.
it.
I know.
Yeah, you can chip 'em.
Really?
This is the thing that I put you there.
I didn't think about that.
Oh,
Yeah, Chris go get that.
This was the first one for me. You get it? Yeah. Sit down. No.
So he's-
I don't need a snake for the fridge.
You feed your mice to it.
Well, that's what the vet, we don't have any mice to get it. Just give it the cigarettes.
I know, I got a black thing in my cat. I leave
You can keep those.
Yeah, that's good for you.
I don't mess with those.
Oh, you did? I sure did. I sure
They
did.
do a good
I
job.
kept my magnate, obviously. My father was a CPA with a very similar. But, yeah,
You don't want to be like that. Pittsburgh.
90.
Yeah, you just
So I've
tell
been
me
going
something got famous
I
for
went to
catching
Penn
ball
State.
python.
I went to Penn State and, wish you were in med school.
Well, that doesn't become like a thing.
And when I was done, it was great.
Yeah, random thing, you know.
They don't bother me.
Yeah,
He makes it
we'll find out.
I went to my Kevin's house.
Well, I'm upstairs. I mean, you guys can bug her.
There are out there.
Oh, yes.
Our way.
Of course.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Place
That's
called
what I was
Liability.
like.
Dorothy. No? She went for a walk. She got in that garage.
That's the way it is.
Wacky.
I went for a walk and came back.
Kind of steamy.
Lights on. Couldn't go up.
I think it probably stinks because they
The rapture.
I'm like 3 half an inch now. They'll find it. It's got a little corner of it. Otherwise, you have your own. It was in the
I heard it.
I wouldn't let that get rid of it. They were all. Jim would go here.
And then we take it back, 20 seconds, so they're going back in?
No.
You got no? Anybody got a yes? Anybody see yes? Anybody see yes?
Can you see me through the crowd?
What time is it? When do we do that?
It's 6 o'clock.
All right, then I'm going, but they're not going back in.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you
Now,
gotta
are they
take the
gonna say
time
whether
back.
you bought it or not? Are they gonna say whether you bought it?
They should, well, it's divide that.
We don't want to be held suspense.
Yeah, no, I think it is.
Remodel construction.
Call the meeting back to order.
Mr. Mayor, I move to go into executive session for real estate to discuss an offer made by the police and subproperty of the city. Recommend employment session to include the mayor, city council, city attorney, city administrator, public works director, and elected officials.
Second.
I'm sorry, Lucas, for how long? 20 minutes?
John Delaney.
Aye.
Luke Stansberg.
Aye.
Jeff Westwood.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Yep, you get 20 minutes of silence.
Okay. so
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
I lost.
But I thought the insurance was.
You make it up, they do.
Yeah, they don't. What do you need attorney for? Do what you want. Who's representing the electric department?
To my knowledge, I mean, they can actually call him, but I'm gonna guarantee you, he doesn't have to put it on there.
Right, no, I understand.
And
I can't either.
So this is the purchase of
Uh-huh.
Crawford County lumber building.
Right,
Okay, to do what? To change the electrical building
yes,
to that?
yes, they wanna build on that, they'll have to, there's no way the buildings would ever hold the property that they have right now,
Like trucks?
like the boom trucks, there's no way.
How many do they have?
Which one are you doing? Street and water.
Now, if you post it,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
When I was here, I don't know what.
No. Is that what you're
not
talking
that.
Uh,
He could have been interested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's moving to the county. That's something that, the next administration is gonna address. Hopefully.
So we work for capital? Is he over in the county?
He is a lot more fun.
Yeah.
I must.
I'm gonna go. I used to babysit her and that's.
Oh, you serious? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. See, my boy graduated with fire.
Yeah.
He's been in mine many times.
yeah, he's a German.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know exactly a German, I think he is.
I think Justin's going the same route too.
Oh, is he?
I'd like to see
I
him.
don't really know the kids, I know Hunter's name because of Tyler, him and Tyler. Green really. And Sammy and I used to run it.
If you wait 6 months, I bet you would.
Trained for a marathon.
Uh-huh.
And we did it in 2 different places.
Great. Where did you run yours?
I did mine at the.
What's that?
So they gotta get elected
oh,
first.
What was it called? The 4 states.
I've been trying to get on.
It's all 4 states. You did all 4 states. And it-
Oh, that's okay.
Well, that's good
I
for you,
can't
man.
think what it
Live
was you
enjoy
would
it.
call them now, but
Oh, okay.
the very first marathon that they did that you went through all 4 states. And it was hot that year. There's not a single hill in Girard. And there's lots of hills down Joplin area. That we ended up in Joplin. But, 10 out of 10, I'll never ever forget.
Wow.
Yep. I know this morning and started coming by.
He got his dream.
In many different ways, the breathing, the aches, and my back.
Found out it's more of a nightmare. That's why I married my second wife.
And it wasn't much worse than mine, never, never.
Yeah.
I mean, I-
24 years.
That's what I
I
say.
know fire alarm. I
You were there when my
was.
kids were there.
But, she's like, oh, I see you walk, I know you come around.
Retired,
No,
I said,
really, I can't.
What would it cost to get you
Being
this?
nickel, but, you know.
You got that.
Yep, and it is, it's literally just.
How about you already coming up?
So we tried to,
How about we
and
become?
she was going to, Chicago.
You found, was that Blaze? That's it.
And you have to do that.
He didn't want me to be a bus
You
driver.
understand. So, I couldn't.
So much can
I
happen
had
in
to
here.
Yeah.
Injuries and.
And they said,
Wait,
oh,
what?
you can get in.
I had to be a Jake
I
Glad.
said, "Nah, I'm not that way. I can't do that.
That kid give me.
Just can't do it." And
Bud.
so, finally, at the last minute, I decided to ride with
Locked it up.
locally. And
The truck is-
I thought I was great for it a while ago.
Oh, yes.
But I shouldn't have. I was like 2.5 marathons. They were fun. I love it.
Yes.
Half marathon. 2.5 hours.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's right.
And,
And the next day, he wasn't a bus driver.
Yeah, I can fix him.
We did it. 6 hours. We did it.
That's great. That's great.
Still standing up at the end.
Yeah,
I
that's,
guess Richard said there's a lot of people, you know, once they cross the finish line, just collapse.
Yeah.
Wore glasses at that time. And it's real hot, so they had misters out, which is great for people who don't wear glasses. But, you know, you gotta have glasses to see, and you run through a mister because you're dying of heat.
Can't put that down there. Work at the hospital.
We are not.
they came to you, gave it to you, you're wrong.
No, we just all off the that.
for that.
costing me. I mean, it's still costing me for 2 years. And this is
Well,
how
not my
bad
story,
it
either,
has
then.
been for Ron. I don't know where to go, but I'll find out. I never have a single man
Let's see. You want,
crazy.
last I knew,
That
7,000. The
out in
flatbed,
the field,
5,000.
they are not my fault. I think someone
It's gonna be an issue. Lots of information for the early ones. Variance filters and that.
you might have to,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and they're like, absolutely, you can. And they wear their mask, and you know, you told me that not vaccinated, you have to continue to wear a mask, you know, you have to. And they would just continue to wear a mask. You get vaccinated.
Wow.
Yeah. They think we're all gonna die and you got vaccinated.
Well, she can tell you the ones that are in the hospital are the ones that haven't been vaccinated.
Well, that's just like what? Arkansas, they were vaccinated? Arkansas? Yeah. Well, even in Missouri, they have it.
Yeah, Springfield's using all 47 ventilators. For
Oh, my goodness.
Springfield Mercy.
I was sick, and I wouldn't want anybody, I wouldn't want my family to be sick.
Are you just for the summer?
And you get a shot, and you okay?
Yeah, what's the downside?
Yeah.
Insurance.
You know, we eradicated polio, and now it's starting to make a comeback because some of them aren't getting vaccinated.
I had a good friend that I watched every night, you know, in Austin. Of course. And it is a hectic.
He's one that gets you. But
And,
he's one,
they will have a party one night, someone was there, hard times out, and a good argument about why she not be vaccinated.
he put bucket truck.
And she said, I'm gonna tell you right now,
Yeah.
my son is a doctor, infectious disease, and he said, Mom, you need to be vaccinated.
I'm not really.
She said, I'm going to be vaccinated. Period in the story. She will never steer me wrong as a parent.
Sherry
And
picked
literally,
up
he's
there.
gone to these third world,
You
third world countries. He has seen TB,
he had looting.
tuberculosis, and I don't know what else is out there. He has seen
He had to stand there for a
they
little
stick
bit.
him in an isolated part. And he's been
Then you can
bad,
come
you know.
roll.
And then they come home and say, why?
Then they
Why are people not
Oh,
doing
it's just crazy.
if they saw what happened?
Didn't go up so high,
They're pretty heartening.
24 platform. So high,
He's in Kansas City this
we
weekend.
would have to get on.
Let me guess, another wedding, a friend's wedding. All of his friends have gotten married. That's the way it is when you're in residency.
Daddy.
Yep.
He had a good friend that he was in school with. that was in
New Year's Day,
suicide.
can you give Lord catch you?
That's horrible.
Price.
Price, oh, is he back in town?
He, no, he's in Kansas City.
It's terrible. The pressure is unreal.
That was one of,
That bothered him a lot.
that was one of Mindy's favorite students.
Well, and vice versa. Austin liked her just as well. He does not have one bad thing to say about her.
It was the day challenge, it was pretty fun watching them go at it.
Oh, I can only
Oh,
imagine.
yeah.
And,
But
I
you
mean,
know
I
what?
don't know your personality, but I know Austin.
I think there's a good shot, he may come back to practice.
Right now, yeah, he knows, Dale thinks he'll be Metro. Because he does not want to own a home. That doesn't mean he won't own a condo where there's no maintenance,
Right,
but I think right now he doesn't have to.
sure, well, that's what you do in your
You know.
thirties.
Yeah. and
Things
that's,
changed.
That he doesn't have issues with good Ubering and all that stuff.
Yeah, he's a real traveler, that's for sure.
He is. You know, a lot of things I'll never do.
You know, you always want to have that one friend that you might. You desire something more like that one person, Jill,
Yes.
one of those.
Oh, she's a wonderful.
She really is wonderful. Worked together now for many years.
Oh, yes.
Years ago, Mr. C. Ken, I was a kid. Still is. And we went, we got a big box of tide.
So you're the one who did that, huh?
About enough, we dumped that in. There was, you wouldn't believe it.
Well, I'm surprised that's not like high school, like senior prank.
You know, it has not been.
I'm surprised, like that would be like,
Yeah.
you know, senior prank type thing.
I've thought about doing it again.
Not that kind of
Turn
senior.
back. And I thought, now sure as hell, they got cameras on.
So they did.
My coondog, that would be caught.
One year, Terry put some cleaning agent in there, not Tide, but full stuff, and it bubbled up a lot.
And then the old police cars had them wheels on top. Pull them off, pull the wheel, pull it off. Me and buddy of mine, he stole the one off the one side, and I stole the one off the other side. And the cop sat right there and was talking to us, walked off. Well, we had some nice candy bowls. Yeah, that's why they made me a cop in this town, because I did what the kids did. Hell, I outrun the city cop one night. The old 58 Chevy with 6 cylinders. I did get over 30 miles an hour, and I whooped him. He said, "You can't do that again." I said, "Hide and watch me." We did it again.
That was the way, bud. That was the way.
He carried 2 doors for me today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And somebody said, looked like they were made of cardboard. They weren't solid wood though, were they? Well, Aaron, are you taking a bet for the next go around?
Uh-oh.
Are we taking bets again?
No, there's no way they would do that. I
Can we
mean,
go back
that's,
again for the same
that's 20,
thing?
30, that's 35 minutes.
47, 2 men, I'll go.
That's a long time for one.
I like it when the executive
Okay.
says,
Check right there.
What's it?
Hand that to me now.
Yeah. At some point you run out of things
I
to
hate
say,
to have
don't you?
Chris chase you down there.
What about mine?
Well, I just been her name on it, but sorry.
All the,
I'm gonna come to your house
all
and
the,
kick
all
your
the city
dog.
employees get paid.
Okay.
Every,
If you can't get lucky enough, we don't have dogs.
every city
All
employee gets
three
paid
of
up.
you.
Oh,
Because
that's way
the
too
mayor has
kind.
to sign checks or, sign off on a check. So every council meeting, the city employees get paid. Right?
I didn't hear.
Is it, tell me what the policy is,
Uh,
the payroll
of
of city
payroll.
employees?
Okay, you mean when they get paid?
Right,
Okay, so today is their pay.
right,
Because it's a council meeting and they approve. pay.
right. And so every 2 weeks they get paid at the council meeting. That's for right, same day as the council meeting.
Yes. Except for it's no longer a physical check, it is a direct deposit.
Right.
It's supposed to be there by Tuesday, which is,
Monday.
so Monday will be our council meeting day, but it should be able to be there on Tuesday. 9 times out.
Yeah, that's where my social security check is. Comes in on Wednesday.
So
no Tuesday. But you can't do nothing till after 4 o'clock. Because then it's going to say. That's why I got my second turn. That's when I called and told her I thought I was gonna make sure bring my bull. What we eat that for? And I said, put on them heifers. He wouldn't get it. How much wrong you with heifers? I said, just talk to Chuck McCallum. He's got 2. I said, I offered 700 a piece. So I told him to take them both. She has no sense of humor. Basically, when I come home from cow sale, and the trailer for cow no sense of humor.
I can honestly say I agree. My entire lifetime, the first time I realized I was when I come home from a cow sale.
She didn't think I was too funny that night. I came home from welfare for homeless, had 2 longhorns in. That's why I don't have any teeth anymore. Because they throw their head.
You catch a horn or the head? Did you catch a horn?
Oh, yeah.
That's about like getting hit with a baseball.
Yeah, I bet.
That'll roast me that. Well, it says Jimmy Ford back to the cat place. I had a mask on my foot. But it's moved my whole face, broke my nose.
In the army, that's one of the bigger enemies to the turret guys at the beginning of the blast, make it, you keep the part of your rifle, or the machine gun. I had, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these which had all new, like, everything replaced, like they just fall on their feet, and they're only like 24 years old, you know what I mean? But you eat the back of the 50 cal twice, and that was pretty much it, you know?
Are they trained? I mean, were they trained?
Well, no, it's that when you hit, if they hit like 90 or something, the blast
Yeah.
from the shockwave
Right.
throws you forward into your gun.
Oh, I got you.
So you're sitting up there, you don't have nothing.
Yeah, that's,
So
so
there's no protection up
you're,
there.
you're talking about an explosion.
Yeah, not just bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. I thought you were just talking shooting.
Oh, no.
Because those blasts from those tanks that, the boy was showing me is pretty impressive.
It's neat, ain't it?
Oh my God, it's crazy.
They wield a lot of, you know, and when you think about it, a 21-year-old kid, you know, he probably has 3 or 4 tanks under him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of power and authority for a 21-year-old
Actually, it's 23.
kid, 23-year-old
Yeah.
kid. Still though.
Yeah, no, and he feels the pressure. I said, that's just part of it.
Yep. And that's the whole point of some of the places like, you know, like NTC or any of those places. They try and throw as much at you as they can.
Oh, yeah.
Stressful as humanly possible.
Well, he did 30 days in the desert, and no comforts at home. Let me put it that way, okay?
Yep, no class 6.
No comforts at home at all. And
Maybe like become no shower for 25 days. Yes.
that's exactly right. That's
It
exactly right.
is.
Is that your phone, right?
No, it's carrying the.
Call the meeting back to order. Moving on to item B, Public Works Director on the sewer update. What?
I can't give you too many times so I can record it.
Mayor, council, administrator, I appreciate you indulging me with the opportunity to speak with you tonight, for allowing me the latitude to clear up some misinformation that seems to have found its way into our community. I've asked to address you in open session. It is my sincere hope that the public will hear and understand the facts behind the opportunities that we have as a city within our wastewater system. As your director, I've had the opportunity to work with the wastewater system as the operator and system manager since April of 2013, and as the director since July of 2018. The system is complex yet simple. There's approximately 17.5 miles of sewers that make up the network that flows from town to a 3-cell, 18.64 acre lagoon system. There are 8 lift stations that assist in moving the sewage through the pipeline. Of those 8 stations, 3 were replaced in 2013 during a major wastewater rehabilitation. 2 more that I have personally had replaced, and the final 3 are on target for replacing pending the next community development block grant that we are pursuing now and have been for several months. Your system is rated to handle 325,000 gallons of flow per day at max rating. Your system typically produces 140,000 to 180,000 gallons of flow per day during normal conditions. During a major rain event of 2 to 6 inches, that flow rate changes dramatically and produces an inconvenience that some homeowners like me and the homeowner that addressed you in the last council meeting are experiencing. It is for that reason that myself and your code enforcement officer strongly suggest to homeowners that they have backflow preventers on their lateral lines. The city is not obligated, the city is not legally responsible, and the city is not without potential risk able to place backflow preventers on homeowners' laterals. The responsibility of the homeowner is to maintain their lateral lines up to the city's sewer main, including their tap. If all this sounds familiar up to this point, it should, because we've had these very discussions in the past during these same normal open public meetings that we have every other Monday in these chambers. The city nor I have in any way ever tried to deceive the public or hide any facts from them about the condition of our wastewater system. When I'm asked questions by homeowners, I give honest answers, and I maintain a level playing field with all. You as a council, as a mayor, and as administrator, myself as your director, have been wrongfully portrayed as individuals who do not care, who offer no solutions, and who are incompetent to perform the jobs we have of protecting the city, its residents, and its assets. Girard's wastewater issues didn't start 4 years ago when you arrived on the scene. On the contrary, they've been in existence for close to 30 years that I have documentation of, and if anything, you deserve to be commended for your work since you have also accepted the positions you are in. The condition causing the surge in the sewer is known as inflow and infiltration, or in our industry we call it I&I. It is the sudden surge of inrush of stormwater into the system through open cleanouts, roof drains tied to the system, sump pumps tied to the system, and manholes below grade. Infiltration occurs from broken lateral lines on the homeowner's side of the main. This I&I, it did not just start happening from your arrival on the council. On the contrary, dating back in the history that I have retained, and it's here in this pile. There was a smoke test performed in 1991. 113 inflow points were documented. Of those 113, only 3 involved city mains. Some of those documented were corrected by responsible homeowners, however, many were not. On March 19, 1993, the Kansas Department of Health issued a certified letter to the then governing body identifying excessive bypass occurrences, excessive I&I, and the impact of heavy rainfall on the sewer system, and requiring the city to put corrections into place. There was another smoke test performed in 1993, some minor changes made, and the addition of the Cherokee lift station. Again, on June 23, 2005, at the operator's request, KRWA assisted in reviewing the city's lagoon system. The KRWA wastewater, that's Kansas Rural Water Association wastewater tech, again identifies, in quote, a very significant inflow and infiltration problem. He also identified the doubling of wastewater flow during significant rain events and gives his opinion that, in quote, correction of the inflow and infiltration problems should be one of the first priorities for the city to address. In 2013, the city wrapped up a $4.5 million wastewater rehabilitation project that was financed and took on a rate increase as is standard practice and is also required by the state of Kansas if you wish to receive financial help and you fall below the state average for sewer rates. In 2013, as your newly hired wastewater operator, I also addressed a mayor, council, and administrator and legal counsel and presented them with an assessment of the system after 6 months of operation post-closing of the project to advise them of many deficiencies that still existed in the wastewater infrastructure and presented them with copies of that assessment and offered to make myself available for questions about the assessment and offered ideas and possible solutions, beginning with yet another new smoke test. The questions never came. The smoke test at first seemed to have approval, but later was squashed. Instead, what I received from a past council member was, "It's a lot of information," and I quote that. When I asked them if they had time to read it and if I could talk with them about it, that's the response I got. Indeed, it is a lot of information as the system is complex, yet the solution was and still is quite simple. Find the sources of inflow and infiltration, replace the last 3 filling stations to improve the efficiency of the handling of wastewater, and you'll have a profound impact on the overburdening of the wastewater system. So why do you as a governing body for the past 4 years deserve to be commended? Because I came to you as your director and informed you of the I&I problem. You listened, and unanimously you agreed to allow me to move forward with the new smoke test, and with the assistance of KRWA, we did just that. As before, the smoke test yielded much of the same deficiencies: broken cleanouts, holes drilled in cleanout caps for improper venting of the sewer, damaged laterals, manholes below grade, or holes in manhole lids, and some city main deficiencies. There were 187 inflow points, and of those, 12 were city mains, 4 manholes below grade. As before, there was a significant number of inflow points and infiltration points identified, and your code enforcement officer has worked closely with me to get 126 letters drafted and mailed to property owners, and 41 letters hand-delivered to landlords asking for their cooperation to get these deficiencies corrected, thereby reducing the overburdening of the system. Likewise, when I have come to you with deficiencies in any of the areas that I'm charged with the responsibility of maintaining, you have taken my concerns under advisement and have acted upon them. My Girard wastewater plan of action for 2013 to 2014 never saw the light of day until you, the present governing body and administrator, took your seats, and upon being appointed as your public works director, came to you asking for your help, and you gave it. Additionally, your administrator and I have worked apart and together on multiple grants and other financial opportunities and have been very successful. We're currently working on more opportunities and have been for months. We're actively working to find solutions, and we are anything but negligent in our pursuit of a better quality of life for the residents of Girard. For the record, it should also be understood that every grant and every loan has a matching fund for payback attached to it. Either we're going to pay a matching portion for CDBG funds, which in most cases, if you want to be serious and get serious about getting that grant, you're going to have to do at least a 50-50 match. And in some cases, it's 55-45, and we're not the 45. The question has been raised regarding why we are pursuing a rate increase. Quite simply, we are slightly below the state average for wastewater rates, and to get help, there must be a revenue stream to help pay it back. Further, the city hired an engineer to perform a review of our water and wastewater infrastructure at my asking, and it has been completed and it's been discussed publicly. This was done to determine an action plan and to begin moving toward USDA loan opportunities and CDBG opportunities while the interest rates are lower. As a city, we have moved very aggressively since my assuming the director position, and I pledge to continue to do so as we make strides to strengthen our infrastructure and improve the quality of life here in Girard. If you wish to continue improving our infrastructure, we will have to incur costs. The misconception that I think a lot of people have is that property taxes all go to the city in which we own property, when in fact only a small percentage comes back to the city. We as a city depend on our utilities to make the revenue that the city needs to operate, and the utility infrastructure is a constant cycle of repairs and improvements. The rates must be kept in line with the rising cost of equipment and parts to keep all the pumps, pipes, transformers, power poles, wire, and more in proper working order. When they're not in line, rates need to be revisited. In closing, it goes without saying that it takes cooperation of the city as an entity, the businesses, the landlords, and the residents as a body to keep a community healthy, vibrant, safe, and beautiful. Each part of the body working together is what brings success, and we must all do our parts to make Girard a town to be proud of. We must all take responsibility for the things we can change that can and may have an impact on someone else in this town. I am here as your director to make a difference, not excuses, and I have been from day one. Likewise, as a governing body, you are anything but incompetent. You have shown due diligence, and you have moved with the plans presented to you for the same common good of our town. You're a good governing body, you're a good administrator, and we have good legal counsel. Thanks for listening. Thanks for acting on the things that you've acted on to date, and the things that you'll continue to act on as we move forward with the future. And thanks for the opportunity to serve as your director. Any questions?
Steve, at one point, from our discussions that I recall, please correct me, Johanna, or you if we're wrong. With our rate being below the state average to access grant funds, specifically state funds, we would be required to raise those rates anyway. And that's as far as-
They will not consider you for CDBG grant funds if you don't meet a certain criteria. There is a point system that's set up, and that's part of that point system. And so the number of people that apply for the CDBG opportunities, you're fighting for everything you have. We're scheduled to do what they call a kayak meeting, where we're gonna go in and we're gonna pitch our case to them as to what we need to do. These 3 stations that we currently have, if we get them fixed, well, not if, when, because we will do it. We will have to. When we get those fixed, it will improve the overall flow, and it will stop the taxation on the system that's happening right now because of the inconsistencies in the pumps. Because those 3 stations, 2 of them were put in 1991, and 1 of them was put in 1993. A station's lifespan expectancy is 20 years. That's a standard market. You can ask any pump dealer out there. And we have babied and taken care of those pumps to the best of our ability, and we stretched them to 30 years. They will stretch no more. So for me, I'm somewhat offended when I feel like people want to say that, you know, that we're not doing our due diligence and we're mismanaging the assets that we have in front of us. We do everything we can, and any of my guys that works for me, including Johnny's not here, but including Johnny, who's worked under me and has learned from me some things, and now he's in a director position and doing well. My guys understand the concept of what we're dealing with here, and I think you do as well. My only hope is that the city and the residents will begin to understand that as well.
Thanks.
The USDA loans go through their own assessment, so if you take on more debt with USDA, then you still need to be at that state
The
average.
state average.
Yeah, but they will tell you if you're gonna take on another 3 million in debt, you have to.
I recall that as a key part of our discussion
Whatever
and
Danny-
moving towards recommendation. Thank you.
Steve, those 3 lift stations approximately would cost you coming up, those total.
What's the cost? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
It's in the PER, and I don't have that with me.
It depends on if we do the submersibles or above ground, but I think the submersibles were close to like 700 and the above ground. were
Correct,
like
and
1.1.
And I'm proposing to do the submersibles because doing the submersibles, we can save approximately $100,000, and that's worth saving. And the submersible pumps, Cherokee is a submersible, and the only thing I don't like about it is where the valves are located at below ground. It's a tight space. It's hard to get in there and do anything, and it's dangerous, to be quite honest with you. And so the new systems that we looked at with Danny, everything's above ground, and submersible pumps, there's just not a whole lot that, you know, tends to go wrong. They plug up, you know, but outside of that, they all do that. So
Part of it, if I recall, is maintaining, replacing with like as opposed to different with engineering costs.
correct, but we, from the discussions we've had, we feel like we're pretty confident that we'd be able to go to submersibles and still be able to pull that off without having to go through all the hoops. That you don't have near the hoops that you have to jump through with the wastewater side of things that you do with the water side of things. It's 2 different people that oversee the plan sets when they approve them through KDHE.
How much more smoke do you have to do before
We
you,
smoke the whole town, and
you have all that?
yes, we smoke the whole town with KRWA. And I will say that the landlords, a lot of the landlords that we handed out, Terry personally handed them letters of deficiencies, and they've done a great job. I will say that, getting ahead of some of that. Quite a few of the homeowners have responded pretty well. The letters that we sent out, I have copies of them here for each of the different deficiencies. The letters that we sent out, they were nice in tone to begin with, because Terry and I felt like that might be the best approach. Let's don't come at it as, hey, you're violating rules, you're breaking rules. So we wanted to say, hey, you know, here's what needs to happen, and we need your help. And that's been real good. But some of what we still have going on, you know, a broken clean out, when you think about it, it's a 4-inch pipe, and we witnessed some of them that were broke off below ground level, and in many cases in the lowest part of the yard. And so you can literally watch on a rainy day and watch that stormwater get into there. And whether anybody realizes it or not, a roof, you know, you take a 1-inch rain on a roof, you'll put 10 to 15,000 gallons of water into the system if they're piped in. Some pumps will do the same thing. You said it yourself, and you experienced, and I know there's other people that have, you know. So it's these things And in the wastewater training that we receive, they'll tell you straight out, if you can solve the homeowner's ties or the faulty laterals or the faulty clean out caps or the flower pots on top of clean out caps with holes in the bottom of them that flower pots have, if you can solve those, you'll solve 85% of your problem. And I can tell you that when I took this job, one of the reasons why I took this job was because my house fights that. And it has since I built it brand new in 2008. I don't complain about it. I just continue to work through the city to fix the problems that caused that. And that was part of the challenge for me. And it used to be when I asked the question, why does this happen? Some of the past staff, what I got was a shrug of the shoulders, and it's just the way it is. And it's not. And I have diligently worked, and I will continue to do that to get the I&I under control the best we can. The last thing that this homeowner spoke of last week when she left here, she mentioned that she had seen improvements since whatever it was that we had done, that smoke test and those letters and people getting their problems fixed is what we've done. And it is making an impact, and it'll continue to the more of that we can get knocked out. So,
You notified 167 of the 187 properties, that's 90% notification.
correct.
Now, you said a normal flow to the, out there is how much a day?
Our normal flow in a dry weather condition, which is the best way to tell what true wastewater flow is anywhere from 140 to 180, generally hangs around 140.
And with the 2-inch downpour, let's say, and
We're easily jumping up to 600,000. And when you get a 6-inch rain, I'm at about 1.5 million. And the reason why I did the assessment to begin with in 2013, the administrator that was here at the time, and he was on his way out, he stood down over a manhole with me. I went and got him, and I asked him to come with me to the manhole that was blowing waste out in the street. And I said, this is what is still going on. $4.5 million later, we still have a problem, and we need to get ahead of it. And he scratched his head and looked at me, and he said, how in the world did we spend $4.5 million and I still have this problem? And I said, because it's going to be an ongoing thing, and we have to stay on top of it. So that's why I did the assessment. And at that time, it wasn't met with much gratitude. So it is what it is. But I will do what I can as your now director, and still very actively involved in everything that I'm responsible for. I'll do what I can to continue to move forward in the right direction. It's important to me that the public understands that we're not a lazy group of people. We're a group of people that care, and I don't like being portrayed like that. And so I felt like it would do me well, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear me out, for you to hear that, and for the public to be able to hear that also.
And Steve, we have the meeting the 14th. We have some information available too.
I'll have, so am I?
I mean, at least for the part with the backflow and stuff.
Yes, I'll have everything ready, so that all the details, and I have all this stuff here, I'll have ready also. And, it'll be easily explained. It may not be easily understood because nobody likes rate increases, neither do I, but it's just like anything else. The cost of the materials, the cost of product, it all goes up. And if we don't do something, we're falling behind. Each year, we're falling more and more behind because the prices rise to get materials and the prices rise to get parts. And I don't have the income coming in to offset that. And so that's why we need the rate increase. Period. And we're not being greedy with it. We're literally looking at what do we have to do to finance what we're trying to get done with these 3 lift stations and upgrading the lagoon system to improve the overall quality. So for me, if you're complaining that the system isn't right and it needs to be fixed, you can't really do that and complain that we can't afford a rate increase, because you have to pay for it somehow, So. Anything else?
thanks.
Moving on to item C, approve condemnation of 409 South Cherokee, 205 East Magnolia, and 504 South Ozark.
These are the condemnations from.
That one.
Sorry.
All on that before is an extension. Got hot. Couldn't work in that house. I've had a heat stroke. I ain't gonna have another one. How much time you looking at? Another month.
What's your address? What's
409.
409 South Cherokee?
Need a motion to that effect, Mr. Mayor?
And like also,
This is the second one.
No, this would be,
He came and talked to us before. This is the first time.
as far as on this bid too, I just wanted to make you guys aware that we have another property that will, there's been an application made to the land bank. And, like you guys are all on the land bank, but we'd like to include that property in the bid too, once the title search is returned and we accept that property. I don't think you, I think maybe in your motion you just say, and if there's any land bank properties, we can include those in the bid as well.
so take 409 South Turkey out.
Yeah, you guys can give them a month's extension of, or is it custom month?
30 days, Rich?
Yeah.
30 days. Mr. Mayor, Jeff Lester, fourth ward, I move we pull 409 South Cherokee out of the condemnation request and grant the property owner a 30-day extension.
Second.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, council.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Bush Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We do one at a time here, right?
Excuse me?
We got to do
I
one
think
at
we
a
can
time.
put them all at once for the bid.
I think it would be a wise idea since you took one out to do it as separate motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we this condemn. What we're saying now is.
We're just, they've already been,
If
like the
they're condemned,
resolution,
we're
so
putting
we're
out
just
for
going
bid.
to go out for bid.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the, move that we put out for bid. 205 East and Malia. Demolition.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Bush Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we put out for bid 504 South Ozark. The demolition bid to be due at 3:30 on July 30th. Bids to open on August 2nd by the mayor.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Bush Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Do we amend the first one here that has the bid due open?
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we amend the 205 East Magnolia to include the bids are due at 3:30 on July 30th and the bids to be open on August 2nd by the mayor.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Bush Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston. Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now, do you want an addendum to that, an additional motion for the land bank properties? May I? Mr. Mayor, Jeff Lester, fourth ward, I move we additionally authorize release of bid for any properties with which the city can obtain title through the land bank and put those out for bid. And if timeline will allow, 3:30, July 30th, and open on August 2nd as well.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Bush Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item D. Correct ordinance number for employee hire ordinance that passed at last meeting. It's 1356, the number.
It
It's
should
supposed
be
to
1356, I can't remember what number.
I gave you a resolution number versus
Okay.
an ordinance number. I'm the one who made the error.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Lester, fourth ward, I move we correct the ordinance number for employee hiring, corrected ordinance number 1356.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Bush Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item E, consider ordinance 1357 regarding cereal malt beverage hours of sale.
The state on July 1st changed the allowable hours of sale for cities from noon to 9 AM.
Sunday.
Yeah,
Is it something that
there's a 60-day waiting period, so the public can start a petition, and if they need a successful amount of petitioners, it would go on the ballot at the next election. And then if nobody protests it, it'll just become legal in 61 days.
one question I have, and this keeps going, but even if it's at state level, even if the city goes back on it, it's still,
No,
I guess, looking at
it would have to be, it has to be authorized by ordinance in the municipality.
so it's it.
Mr. Chairman, I move the, approve ordinance 1357, regarding no service hours, moving from noon to 9 o'clock.
Second.
John Delaney,
Aye.
Luke Stansberg,
Yes,
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item F, consider ordinance 1358 regarding alcoholic liquor hours of sale.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, Karen knows the difference there. I think C&B is beer and alcohol liquors,
Yes.
just it's more alcohol than beer.
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of 1357, regarding the, 58 for the hours of sale. Be from the same time, right?
Yep.
second,
Sheldon Delaney, Lucas Stansberg,
yes,
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G, consider charter ordinance 2021-2.
2021-1, change some of the language about appointed versus, employee contracts. And Steve A. and I found it in another spot, so we have to do another repeal order. So it's basically the same thing as last time, but we're filling a different section that says the same thing.
We just need to approve the ordinance.
this newspaper.
Am I on the wrong one? Okay, that's for item H, everything I just said, so remember that. For this one, this is to exempt ourselves from the state statute that mandates cities of the second class to wait 1 year to be able to use an official newspaper that just became a weekly. You would have to wait 1 year. So this charter ordinance will exempt us from that, which a lot of cities have done. And instead, we'll say that we set to our official newspaper will be by resolution. This also has a 60-day waiting period on it, since it's a charter ordinance. But after the 60 days, we can use Hometown Girard, because they're now gonna be publishing weekly.
Right.
And we could do that by a resolution, but first we have to do this and wait 60 days. If we didn't do this, we would have to wait a year.
The first one, we just need to approve ordinance 2021-2.
Correct. Charter ordinance.
Charter, I'm sorry. I'll make that in form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Sheldon Delaney,
Aye.
Lucas Stansberg.
Aye.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve charter ordinance 2021-3, exempt us from the year. And
It's not- What was that one again?
It was just repealing a section of 2016-03 that was the same as 1984-01 that we'd already repealed.
So there was an existing redundancy, and this is
Yes, there's an
repealing both of those.
existing
replacing both.
redundancy, yeah.
we're gonna have to have a motion for that.
No, we still need a motion to approve charter ordinance 2021-3.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move we approve charter ordinance 2021-3.
Second.
Sheldon Delaney,
Aye.
Lucas Stansberg,
Yes,
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item I, consider statement of intent to exceed R&R.
The R&R is the revenue neutral rate. This is new state legislation that replaces the property tax lid legislation. The revenue neutral rate is the the mill rate based on current appraisals that if we adopted would allow us to collect the exact same amount of revenue as we did in the prior budget year. However, if appraisals increase in the middle of the year and you accidentally raise more revenue than you did the prior year, it would be illegal. So like this year, our appraisals went up, our estimated appraisals that I got from the county. So our revenue neutral rate, mill rate, is less than what our mill rate was last year, which is fine. We might still be able to do that budget wise. But if you don't follow the revenue neutral rate exemption procedure and the appraisals go up and you accidentally collect more with revenue than expected, it's illegal. So every single city that Karen and I have talked to in the league is recommending that whether or not you plan to exceed the revenue neutral rate, you go through the process so that you can, just in case your appraisals go up. So this is just a letter that goes to non-final and it says, we think we'll exceed the revenue neutral rate, and I just put the exact same mill rate as last year because we don't even have our audit back yet, so I have no clue what that'll look like. So
There's nothing in this to raise mill rates or anything like that. It's a
no, it's
procedural in
perfect.
case more revenue comes in than
Yes,
expected.
and I had to put in the letter a proposed rate, and I just put the proposed rate at the exact same as last year. But once we go through the procedure, it can be anything, it can be less,
Understood.
and it might be less, and I mean, who knows, once we get the budget done, we just have to wait for audit numbers. But anyways, I need that approved with mayor's signature, so I can send it to the county clerk.
And the important thing too is that August 30th date, is that a council?
Yes, at the very, I hope so. I'm sure I looked at my calendar before I put August 30th. It is, and so it's okay.
Third meeting in August.
Yes, and so the way Karen and I understand it, of course, this is all brand new legislation. We have to do the statement of intent to exceed the R&R. Then we have to have the revenue neutral rate hearing between August and September. And then we have to pass a resolution, correct? And I think that's it. But this will make it so that our budget, instead of being due early August, will be due later in September, which is really good since we usually get our audit in March and we don't even have it this year. They're already done the audit, but they haven't prepared the final, the statement yet.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the statement of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate and be signed by the mayor and sent to the county office.
Second.
Michelle Delane,
Uh,
Lucas Stansberry.
Aye.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
All right.
Motion carries. Item J, consider KEC quote.
Cliff is not here tonight, and Karen might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the organization that does the trainings in the electric department. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And they've done it for how many years? A lot.
As long as I can remember.
As long as Karen can remember. Does this also have something to do with our work call?
So just say they're increasing it, they're in the contract.
And Cliff recommended that it be approved. He's on vacation.
They come down and do training and, pole training, lineman training, safety training. It's a good program.
they've done it every year, haven't they?
Yes. They have 4 times that they do this.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff Lester, Fourth Ward, I move we approve the KEC quote for training for our electric department employees.
Michelle Delane, Lucas Stansberry.
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Lester.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item K, schedule revenue neutral rate hearing for August 30th, 2021 at 5 p.m.
Same thing, it involves a public hearing hearing, just like the one we did for CDBG today.
Entertain a motion to set the date. Sharon, I move that we approve the revenue neutral rate hearing for August 30th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Is that to be here?
Yes.
Second.
John Delaney. Lucas Stansberry.
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item L. Consider quotes for west substation and four-pole structure.
Council, as you are aware, our west substation was struck by lightning and they didn't really have a whole lot of choice or time to set a special meeting. So these repairs have actually already been completed and we need approval to pay for it, basically. Insurance will be covering a portion of it. I don't think we know how much yet, can you hear back from them?
No, not yet.
I had a question. Whenever we have, well, I don't know if you're ready about something certified, whenever we've had the power, just a piece of stuff, that was over. We talked about the emergency situation.
Yeah, we weren't sure if that would cover this or not, but I think it would have, but I'm not sure exactly about that. I called Cliff and I also spoke to the mayor that night and either would have been out power probably to the hospital and most of the town, or we have to make that decision to tell KMEA to do it.
And then so we did that, but that was also something else that was important.
Right.
I think it was for a state of emergency, but I didn't know if that was, I guess that was.
That's
probably fall
a
under
good
it.
point, Lucas, and I think if it doesn't specifically, it certainly would in the spirit of that same thing. And so I'm in favor, obviously, of approving.
Because you had a critical facility now, you had a local emergency.
It's invoice that says they're on a time and material basis, and that, I mean, it's very logical. Mr. Mayor, Jeff Lester, fourth ward, I move to approve the work on west substation as outlined from the KMEA Mid-States documents on our
Second.
John Delaney. Lucas Stansberry.
Aye.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item M, appoint Diana Brooks to serve on unexpired term as a member of the Girard Housing Authority to expire June 24th, 2022, replacing Mary Crawford.
Anything special about this town?
No, I spoke to Desiree today, and due to COVID last year and the newness of her position, some of the appointments kind of went by the wayside. She said that Jesse would know all of these situations. And so at this time, she's got this information to me. There's also, in the iPad, it looks like Jeff's position is still open at this time, even though he has resigned. Something about an M she talked about.
Yeah, there's, first off, Diana Brooks has agreed to fulfill the term of Mary Crocker, who had to resign. Item M, and then N, Ruth Dooling was an existing member of the Housing Authority. Additionally, they're looking for someone to, I served for about 20 years, last 15 years as chairman, and I thought it was time to move on because I had some meeting conflict time. And so, as chairman, there are certain duties that have to be transacted, financial items, and so until all that paperwork through HUD can be accomplished, I need to stay available to verify that for them until there's a replacement, and then that replacement is certified through HUD, so that they can keep the
And she
money.
said it was kind of a timely process to
It
get
is.
that certification.
And I told her, you know what's another 3 months compared to 20 years. We'll be glad to work with her.
So there's no special,
I don't think there's even a motion. Is it just a mayoral appointment?
That's right.
right, that has to be approved.
serve an unexpired term as a member of the Housing Authority to expire June 24th, 2022.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Luke Stansbury.
Aye.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item N, appoint to re-elect Ruth Dooling as a member of the Girard Housing Authority from June 24th, 2021 to June 24th, 2025.
Chairman, I move we elect Bruce Dooley, member of the Housing Authority, on June 24th. From 2021 to 2025.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Luke Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item O, appoint to re-elect Cecilia Jones as a member of the Housing Authority from June 24th, 2021 to June 24th of 2025.
And Cecilia is a resident representative to that board and does a terrific job.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we appoint Sarah Jones as a member of the Housing Authority from June 24th, 2021 to June 24th, 2025.
Second.
Sheldon Delane,
Aye.
Luke Stansbury,
Yes.
Bill Houston.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, with no further business, we go on to governing body comments. Sheldon Delane,
I don't have anything.
Luke Stansbury,
Have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Bill Houston,
I have nothing.
Jeff Leslie.
Sounds redundant, but I appreciate everything the city employees done. New chief, glad to have you here and taking control of things. And it's obvious that you have a heck of a good idea about community policing, and we're lucky to have you. Steve, thank you for the information. I know it's a lot and I know it's frustrating, but I appreciate your hard work. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got two governing body comments, and they're probably somewhat in the sewer update. But then I just going to address an email after our last meeting. And it was, I believe there was some misinformation or some lack of information in that email. And it was talking about the city did nothing. The council said here, if you've got a problem with the sewer or a part of the city, who would best address that? It would be the people that work on it, the public works director. It was stated that we did nothing to the person's complaint. She did advise that whatever we're doing did do some good, and that whatever we're doing is doing everything. We advised her that what she could do to resolve the problem with her residents. There were some comments, but I mean, I feel like there was some important items made out of this social media post, and I just wanted to address it. Another thing I want to address is a newspaper article. I want to just address some things like, one thing was the city failed to make a plan to determine market value. I understand what you're saying, but the thing about it, when you're looking for industrial development, sometimes you're better off making the decisions that are best for the city. And you don't take into consideration what it does for industry to expand. The previous owner of this business made a comment that the city never worked with them in the past until the new owners came in, and he told them they were in a good place. We worked with them what we felt was the best thing for the city, for industrial development. He's already hired 5 people on top of what he's done. And this business, whether you realize it or not, is doing a lot for the city. With 60% of his employees are city residents. Okay, that gives you some
revenue to the city. And then another thing was said, the city failed to obtain a certified appraisal. This is true. But we did what we felt was good for the city by expanding this industry. We've done three industrial expansions in less than a year's time. People don't realize this, but we have done Strukel Electric. We worked with them. We worked with Edco on their expansion, and we worked with what was previous Thomas Manufacturing. That hasn't been done in Girard for how many years or decades even. People don't see the importance of this. And I don't comment on stuff like this. I usually don't, but I felt like it needed a little bit of attention and verification. And it said that the city failed to allow the public to inspect the property and submit a bid. We're not on a bid process, and we're helping out an industry.
May I respond, Mr. Mayor, may I respond? Since you're directly quoting my,
That's right.
would you like, can I respond?
Not right now. Let me finish, you can respond. Then, there was no plan for another location. Well, there may not be any obvious plan. We're working on that. We're trying to do what's the best one. There was a thing on here, no discussion about the cost of replacing the city building and plant. I don't know what plant you're talking about, because there wasn't a plant. We didn't get rid of a plant. I don't know if you think we got rid of the power plant, but we didn't. And you don't have any idea when we could replace it. We're working on that. We're not at any point to where we have to rush into it. The $500,000 to $600,000, I will tell you that did come in the bids on this building, the new building, and we didn't act on it, and we're not going to. We're going to do what is best for the city. Another comment, May 24th, request is placed on the city council agenda. And I was told it was denied. Well, I told Karen to deny you. You could have worked on the public forum. You could have said what you said in public forum. You refused to talk that night. That was the agenda is for city business. And you said you were going to talk about the inquiry about the sale. That was before the sale was even totally done. You were told Karen you were wanting to come in and talk about the city attorney and the city administrator's contract. You could have done that in public forum. And, that's about all I have to say on this. I'm going to address it now. That'll be it. And if you have something to say, you can go ahead and say it.
Okay, first of all, I didn't even mention the company's name, Thomas Manufacturing. You did. I have no issue whatsoever with Thomas Manufacturing. They did what every successful business does, which is negotiate in their best interest. The city selling the property without getting a certified appraisal is incompetent. Plain and simple, period. I am all about business. I am all about employees that businesses hire. But the manner that it was done by this city council, by not getting the representation about what it would cost to replace it, was not competent. Industrial business has to do a lot of things in order to move. They have to acquire another building somewhere else. There's a lot of expense in that. They have to retrain those people that they have working here. Again, a lot of expense in that. They have to physically lose business or lose a period of time in that interim period that they are moving. A lot of expense in that. This company is a very well-established company, almost $2 million plus income per year. They would have paid a fair price for that property. The property is worth well over $500,000. it was sold for $135,000.
Well, I don't know where you get your appraisal or if you're an appraiser or whatever, but one thing you did say on this also in this article is that they threatened to move out of Girard if we didn't work with them. That was never in the game. They never threatened that at all. You said it in your article.
I said it's a possibility. I assume that. Okay, so what you're telling me is that they were going to stay in Girard whether that property was sold to them or not. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, well then you just verified what I said.
They did not say they were going to move out. They wanted us to work with them. We
Right,
worked with them.
and I agree. We could work with them, but at what expense to the citizens of Girard that you don't at least get an appraisal to find out what the property value of the property that you're going to transfer? It's just reasonable to reflect the citizens of Girard to sell their property, which the bottom line, gentlemen, is not your property. It's the citizens of Girard property. If you're going to sell their property, the least you can do is get an appraisal, get with the fair market value, and negotiate in the city's best interests instead of the companies. They took advantage of the situation.
No, they didn't.
I think what the mayor is saying is that there's more value to.
There's more value to what they're bringing to the community than what you're talking about.
Okay, and if that's the case, then absolutely. Why don't we have a discussion about that? And if that is if that in certain case, let's put that in the contract. I read the contract, Mr. Mayor. There's nothing in the contract that gives any commitment from Thomas Manufacturing to the city of Girard for any business development as far as number of employees, as far as what they're going to invest, or anything else. There's no commitment. The only commitment they have to us is that if they try to resell it, we have right of first refusal. They can resell it at any price that they want to put on it. So obviously, if they found somebody that wanted to buy that property for market value and offer it to us, we could refuse it, but they can still sell it.
Well, what I'm saying though is what it brings to the community. You don't realize the income it brings to the community in sales tax, in revenue from people who pay property tax and all that. What you're doing, you're working to get industrial development. Rental property is not the only industrial development in Girard. We have, like I said, we work with Strukel Electric. We work with Edco. We work with all of them. What about the money we help them out with? I mean, you gotta work with people to keep the industry here and keep them growing.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. I just think the responsible way is get an appraisal, a fair market value for the citizens of Girard, since it's their property, and negotiate in a more transparent, I think is the word, transparent manner to the citizens of Girard as well as to the company and everybody involved.
Well, we were transparent about the whole thing. Every time we discussed something about how we were going to sell it, how much we were going to sell it to them for and everything. After we discussed it, we discussed it out here. We made a motion on to accept it. We did that.
With no discussion.
Nobody complained then.
With those, well, you can't talk in a meeting when it's being discussed, and when you go into executive session, we have no idea what's being said, obviously. But when you come out here and just say it's okay, we're going to do that, there's no discussion that's asked from the city or even put it out there. That's why I requested just the opportunity for this. Say, listen, there was nothing in my knowledge that was presented to the city about what they were trying to sell, what was involved, and no offer to anybody that, hey, listen, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to sell it for. It's obviously below market value, and this is why we want to sell it below market value.
Mr. Mayor, may I interrupt for 1 second, please? I understand your point, and your point of getting appraisals noted. We took the information we had available, our best estimation of the economic impact of assisting them in developing their business and hiring additional employees, which we are to believe will be well in excess of the 5 that they've already hired, and made a decision. I believe I made the motion myself to accept the $135,000 bid, and it was seconded and voted upon, and no one in the audience rose with any point of order about that, which they certainly have the right to do. It was done in the open, and it was a calculation. This is a representative city council. It is not a pure democracy for every issue brought before us is voted upon by referendum. So we followed absolute due process on completing this. Everything was done in the light of day. I certainly voted for. I believe I made the motion to accept the bid, and there was no there was no contention with that made during the meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Mr. Chairman, there's difference of opinion. I moved to adjourn. We have 5 minutes.
If that's the case, I want to address what Mr. Leslie just said. If that's the case, then that should have been presented line item by line item, what exactly, and put in contract what the industry was going to do for the city of Girard, so that everybody is clear. If that is what you're telling me, that we're going to reap over $500,000 worth of business and interests and everything else, let's put it in the public record, so that we don't see a $500,000 property selling for 135, and it doesn't represent.
Well, I don't know where you get to where it's worth $500,000, but what I'm saying is, we can't say what that business is going to generate, but chances are it's going to. They're a $2 million a year business right now. They've got a contract where he said they could work people 24/7, but he doesn't want to burn them out. You don't know what the economic they can tell us it's going to be $500,000 or $2 million, but until they get their stuff, their contracts and everything done, they're not going to know that.
Yeah, but
you don't know what they do to help out the school and the other things. You don't know this.
Where did you get your value of $500,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, you've got the replacement costs on those buildings. You got a 24-foot sidewall buildings. We're talking about replacing that building alone would be $250,000. Bottom line, we're not talking about a property that's 181 by 400. We're not talking about another 240 by 200 property. Plus, we're not talking about a 4,000 square foot building, plus enclosed gates, fenced gates, storage areas. I have over 89 properties in this. I know the property in Girard. I'm very, very knowledgeable about it. And I know business, gentlemen. I know that this company would have paid a fair price, and 135 was not a fair price.
How do you know they pay that?
Excuse me?
Are you making decisions?
Well, let me ask you something. Was he going to offer? What were the amounts? Did somebody just come up with a number and say, "Oh, this is what we're going to pay for it"? Who made what amounts? Who made the negotiations? See, nothing of this was in the public forum or a public transparent anyway to any citizen in Girard.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak for a second? Thank you, Kevin. So each one of us represent our wards, and I act on these big decisions. I talk to my citizens or my ward individuals, and I ask some questions like, how do you feel about industrial in Girard? And like Jeff had said, we collectively go back, and you might not see it, but we talk to people every day or every other day and get their feelings. So if you have someone that has these issues, whatnot, have them come talk to us. We're emails, we have phones, they can come by and just talk to this individuals, because that's how we make our decisions every day. We come, because we do know government. You might be a businessman, but we come here every other week and try to make decisions based on the citizens for Girard, and we listen to them. Mickey mentioned earlier about Facebook. I watch Facebook quite a bit. I don't talk because it's not worth it. We're just going to spin our heads round and round for hours. What you need to do is find the solution to the problems, not be part of the problem. So again, if you have people that are unhappy or feel like it's not transparent enough, make a phone call or come talk to them. That's what I have, Mr. Mayor.
I'm all about pro-business, Mr. Stansberry. I have a lot of invested interest in having businesses here. I have no problem with the manufacturing, Thomas Manufacturing. I am absolutely very, very happy that they worked out a deal. My position is that the city did not negotiate in its best interest to get this deal done.
Noted, Mr. Mayor, unless you have other comments, I move we adjourn.
I second it.
Kelvin Delaney,
Aye.
Luke Stansberry,
Yes.
Bill Easton.
Aye.
Jeff Leslie.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
This is always in that from day one. I think it's when you turn it off. I can't turn it off. Yeah, I'm trying to turn it off.
Yeah, this is what I went to go print off and it's already print off.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to cut you off, sir.
No problem. You said what you be said.
They're down there.
And I bit my